So there is an episode of a massively beloved television show that is, it's so disastrous and profoundly misguided that no one talks about it.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate taboo
But
subject.
like the cast, the crew, the producers, they all have this quiet, unspoken agreement to just never mention it at conventions.
It is securely padlocked in the franchise's basement, for sure.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today, for you listening, we are opening that door.
We really are.
We are diving deep into Star Trek, The Next Generation, specifically Season 1, Episode 4.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, it's titled Code of Honor, originally broadcast on October 12, 1987. And for decades, it has been the definitive skip-it episode for fans.
It really holds a very special, very uncomfortable place in television history.
Oh, absolutely.
But, we aren't doing this deep dive today just to, point and laugh at a bad hour of television.
Right, because that's just too easy.
It's too easy and honestly not very instructive for you at all. What's fascinating here is that this specific monumental failure serves as a perfect lens.
A lens into, the production side of things.
Yeah, it allows us to examine the exact mechanics of what happens when a show's grand, progressive, high-concept ambition violently collides with reality.
The reality of a brutal weekly TV schedule, right?
Right. It's that messy, deeply flawed reality of churning out episodes week after week.
If you've ever rushed out the first draft of a project to meet a deadline or launch something before it was truly ready, you know exactly how painful that collision can be.
Oh, we've all been there. It's agonizing.
Totally. So this deep dive is basically a masterclass in the growing pains of a massive undertaking.
Yeah, it really is.
We are looking at the mangled first pancake of a show that would eventually, define an entire genre.
The quintessential mangled pancake.
Exactly. But to truly understand why this specific hour of television is so historically cringe-inducing, we can't just jump straight to the thematic disasters.
No, you really have to start with the foundational mechanics of the storytelling.
Right, because the basic script structure begins to collapse, in the very first act.
It really does. The foundational architecture of the narrative is just flawed from page one.
So let's look at the basic plot just to get everyone up to speed.
Yeah, let's do it. So the USS Enterprise arrives at a planet called Ligan 2.
And they're on a mission.
Right, a desperate medical mission.
Yeah.
They need to secure a rare vaccine for a deadly plague that's, currently ravaging a Federation colony called Styrus IV.
So millions of lives are actively on the line. It's a huge deal.
A massive deal. Starfleet desperately needs the vaccine, the Ligonians have it, and so Captain Picard has to engage in some very delicate, high-stakes diplomacy.
That sounds like a perfectly standard, solid sci-fi premise.
It does. On paper, it works.
The ticking clock is totally set, but then the Ligonians beam aboard the Enterprise.
And that's where things immediately go off the rails.
Completely. So they have this very rigid, highly ritualized warrior code, and their leader, a guy named Lutan, takes one look at the Enterprise's security chief, Tasha Yar.
And just becomes immediately obsessed with her.
Right. So right in the middle of this fancy diplomatic reception on the ship, Lutan just straight up kidnaps Tasha.
Just beams out with her.
Yeah. He beams down to the planet's surface with her and announces that she's going to be his first one.
Which is their culture's term for a primary wife.
Which is wild. And Luton's current first one, a woman named Urina, is obviously not thrilled about this.
No, she is not happy about this sudden demotion or the alien rival.
So Picard is completely trapped. He can't just beam his security chief back to the ship, right?
Exactly. And he can't go in with phasers blazing either.
Because of the vaccine.
Right. If he damages this fragile diplomatic relationship, Luton will just withhold the vaccine and the entire colony of Styrus V will die.
So Picard is completely immobilized. He's forced to play Luton's game.
Which means engaging in endless, incredibly slow ceremonial posturing.
Oh my gosh, so slow.
All right.
And this eventually escalates into Urina challenging Tasha to a ritual combat to the death.
Famous duel.
Yes. And they fight this duel using weapons that, I kid you not, look exactly like oven mitts from the future.
They really do. The season 1 props budget was out there doing its absolute best.
Ah, bless them. But they are these bulky, awkward gloves that glow neon orange when you activate them.
And they supposedly deliver a lethal neurotoxin on contact.
Supposedly, yeah. Visually, it is very goofy.
Uber goofy.
But, the visuals aren't even the real problem here. The pacing of the script is just completely broken.
It is a textbook structural disaster.
It really is. The plot mechanism here is it's like setting a ticking time bomb under a table in a crowded restaurant.
Yeah.
Showing the timer counting down from 10 minutes, and then having the characters spend 45 minutes casually arguing over who gets to pay the check.
That is a perfect analogy, because how do the writers introduce a terrifying plague killing thousands in the teaser and then completely forget about it?
I know. Picard and the senior staff literally just sit in the bleachers on an alien planet watching a kidnapping and an elaborate duel play out at a glacial pace.
While an entire colony is supposedly suffocating to death off-screen,
It's bananas.
what you're identifying is a complete misalignment of dramatic stakes.
Right.
The external pressure, like the ticking clock of the plague, is totally disconnected from the immediate action, which is the duel over Tasha.
It's like two different episodes glued together.
Exactly. The story the writers actually wanted to tell was about this alien warrior culture's honor code and how Starfleet deals with customs they find repulsive.
But to force the Enterprise to stay and engage with it, they just slapped a plague onto the beginning of the script.
Right, to create an artificial hostage situation.
So the plague is nothing more than a narrative pair of handcuffs. It just traps the characters in the room.
And because the fundamental structure of the story is so artificial, the script constantly has to scramble to explain itself to the audience.
Oh, the exposition.
Yet when a story lacks internal logic, the dialogue has to do all the heavy lifting. There's this deeply telling 90-second scene where the android Data tries to explain to Geordi LaForge why Luton's kidnapping of Tasha actually makes internal cultural sense.
Oh, I love this scene because it's so bad.
Data just starts referencing obscure Earth historical parallels to justify the behavior we're seeing on screen.
While Geordi just stands there, politely listening to a Wikipedia article being read aloud.
Literally. And that single brief conversation is forced to carry almost all of the thematic weight for the entire hour.
Which is so unfair to the actors.
It is. The writers knew they needed to justify this bizarre, frankly unbelievable scenario, but the narrative structure couldn't support it organically.
They couldn't show us why the culture functioned this way.
Exactly. So they had a character deliver an exposition dump to explicitly tell us. It's the ultimate symptom of a script that simply doesn't trust its own storytelling.
Okay, so bad pacing is a screenwriting sin, right? And clumsy exposition is super annoying. But a clunky script doesn't make an episode a do not speak of this convention secret.
No. A lot of early television is awkward as it finds its footing.
Right. So there has to be something much more fundamentally broken here to get this hour practically blacklisted by its own creators.
Oh, there is.
We have to move from the structural flaws to the thematic disaster.
The discomfort stems directly from the execution of the Legonian culture itself.
Yeah, let's get into this.
The episode presents Legon II as a technologically advanced civilization that has deliberately chosen to retain the social customs and values of pre-colonial West Africa.
Okay.
And furthermore, every single Legonian guest character in the episode is portrayed by a black actor.
And the specific culture being depicted on screen, the rigid, brutal warrior codes, the ritualized combat to the death, the explicit treatment of women as property to be claimed, traded, and fought over, it relies entirely on a very uncomfortable set of Hollywood shorthand signifiers.
It leans so heavily into racial tropes that have a long, painful, and damaging history in media.
It's incredibly hard to watch.
That impact is heavily compounded by how the story treats the character of Tasha Yar.
Right, because in the established lore of the show, Tasha is a hardened survivor.
Exactly. She scraped her way out of a violent, collapsed colony world. She earned her position as the chief of security through immense grit and tactical brilliance.
She is a protector.
But in this script, her agency is entirely stripped away.
Completely gone.
She's reduced to a prize. She's kidnapped. She's claimed by a man. She's fought over by a jealous wife.
Things just simply happen to her.
Yes. She's treated as an object to be moved around the narrative board rather than the active subject driving the story.
So what does this all mean? We have a messy plot, reductive tropes, and the stripping of a main character's agency.
It sounds actively regressive.
It does. It sounds entirely against the ethos of Star Trek. But I want to push back on the idea of malice for a second for you listening, because understanding the mechanism of this failure is crucial.
Right. It wasn't intentional bigotry.
No, the creators were not setting out to make something offensive. They were genuinely trying to do what this franchise has always done.
Which is use an alien culture as a mirror to examine humanity's own past and present.
Exactly. They wanted to do delicate, progressive surgery on the concept of cultural relativism, but they used a blunt, rusty, completely outdated toolkit to do it.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of television production, it becomes a textbook example of the chasm between intent and impact.
The impact was terrible.
The creators intended to show a complex culture with a vastly different set of values and explore how Starfleet navigates that friction without violating their own principles.
But the impact was entirely reductive, yeah.
They treated the Ligonian culture as a quirk to be navigated, rather than a fully realized civilization to be understood.
And this happens so often when creators are under extreme pressure, When you're rushing to meet a punishing, really television deadline, you don't have time for ethnographic nuance.
You fall back on what you know.
Right. You fall back on shorthand.
And if your writer's room lacks diverse perspectives, and your shorthand is built on decades of lazy Hollywood stereotyping.
That is exactly what ends up on the screen.
Completely, regardless of your utopian intentions.
Yeah.
The deadline dictates the depth. They needed an alien culture fast, they reached into the pop culture toolbox, and they pulled out cliches.
It is such a vital lesson for anyone creating anything, honestly. You can have the loftiest, most progressive goals in the world, but if your day-to-day execution relies on unexamined shortcuts,
your final product is going to reflect those shortcuts, not your ideals.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because the script is such a structural and thematic mess, it actually creates this fascinating vacuum.
It does.
It forces us to look at the sheer willpower of the professionals who are desperately trying to salvage it.
Because when talented people are handed a deeply flawed project, their reaction is often the only redeeming quality of the work. You can literally see the actors actively fighting against the limitations of the text.
Oh, Patrick Stewart brings an insane amount of gravitas to this material.
It's incredible.
He could practically read a cable bill and make it sound gripping, and he absolutely manages that miracle here.
He portrays this deeply frustrated, completely constrained diplomat.
And he doesn't just read the lines, he grounds them in immense physical restraint. You can see the tension in his posture.
He knows his security chief has been kidnapped. He desperately wants to act, but he cannot just solve the problem with a phaser without dooming millions of people on that colony.
Stewart's quiet fury actually provides the episode with its only genuine dramatic engine.
We see a very similar effort from Denise Crosby as Tasha Yar, too.
Oh, yes. Despite the fact that the script treats her character as a literal prop to be traded.
Crosby plays every single scene with absolute, unblinking conviction.
Yeah.
When she's thrust into that combat sequence with the glowing gloves.
The oven mitts.
The oven mitts, yes.
Oh.
Or when she's standing in Luton's throne room refusing to be intimidated, she projects a genuine, hard-earned toughness.
She finds a way to show the audience the complex character Tasha Yar was supposed to be, even while the plot is actively undermining her at every turn.
They are acting their hearts out on a sinking ship.
They really are. But the absolute highlight of this salvage operation is the ending.
The sci-fi loophole?
Yes. Buried under all the pacing issues and the uncomfortable tropes, there is a legitimately brilliant piece of sci-fi problem solving.
It's the climax of the duel. Tasha and Urena have their fight to the death.
And Tasha wins.
Tasha wins. Urena is struck by the neurotoxin, and she dies right there in the arena.
But the second she flatlines, Dr. Crusher beams both of them up to the Enterprise.
And Crusher immediately uses the ship's advanced medical technology to revive Urena.
She resuscitates her using the transporter and the sickbay equipment, bringing her back from clinical death.
Right, and because Urena technically died, the strict terms of the Ligonian duel are completely fulfilled.
The honor code is satisfied. The fight to the death happened. But the legal ramifications are incredible.
Because Urena died, her marriage contract to Luton is legally severed under their own laws.
So she's a free woman.
Yep. She wakes up in sickbay, realizes she is no longer bound to Luton, and promptly takes Luton's second-in-command as her new partner.
And because of their specific matriarchal property laws, she inherits all the land and all the wealth.
Luton is left utterly humiliated with absolutely nothing. The Enterprise gets a vaccine, and they warp away.
That is a phenomenal narrative loophole.
It is genuinely clever writing. The transporter solution is a glimpse of the high-level cerebral storytelling the show would eventually become famous for.
It's using the established technology of the world to resolve a crisis intelligently without cheating the rules they set up.
Exactly. Dr. Crusher's clean, confident execution of that medical plan, combined with the actors finding every possible corner of sincerity available to them.
It proves that the DNA for greatness was already in the room.
The cast and the crew were entirely capable of brilliance. They were just trapped inside a crumbling architectural structure.
So we've dissected the misaligned stakes of the ticking bomb plague. We've unpacked the very real danger of relying on Hollywood shorthand when trying to depict complex cultures.
And we've marveled at the incredible acting and the clever sci-fi loophole that tried to hold the hour together.
But zooming out, what does Code of Honor actually teach us about the creative process as a whole?
It illuminates the aspirational gap.
The gap between the idea and the execution.
Right. In 1987, there was a massive, almost insurmountable distance between Gene Roddenberry's idealistic vision for the future and the punishing reality of making a syndicated television show.
Because Roddenberry's vision was of a future where humanity had evolved past its worst impulses, right?
Where we solved complex geopolitical problems with empathy, diplomacy, and intelligence instead of violence. But, a philosophical vision isn't a script.
It is so easy to write "humanity is perfect" in a show Bible. It is incredibly difficult to write a compelling 45-minute dramatic conflict based on that premise every single week.
This raises an important question regarding how we evaluate early failures. Do we write them off entirely?
I mean, it's tempting.
It is, but sitting with uncomfortable failures like Code of Honor is useful precisely because it is so clarifying.
You have to witness this level of failure to truly understand the massive distance a creative team has to travel to achieve greatness.
The ambition of this show was purely aspirational. It wasn't guaranteed just because they had a famous franchise name attached to it.
They had to earn that utopian vision, and they had to earn it the hard way, episode by agonizing episode.
And sometimes the Friday deadline hits, the studio needs a tape, and you just have to air the deeply flawed product you have in your hands.
The cast deserved vastly better material than this script.
They did. And as history shows us, they eventually got it.
They pushed through, they refined their process, and they went on to make some of the greatest, most thoughtful television in history.
But they had to fight through the mud of their own early mistakes to find their footing.
It just shows you progress is almost never a linear upward trajectory. It's messy.
It is messy. It's fraught with missteps, and under pressure, you will often fall back into bad habits or outdated shorthand.
But if you keep pushing, if you keep refining the tools in your kit, you can eventually close that gap between what you aspire to be and what you're actually producing.
It is a humbling reminder that even the most beloved, sophisticated institutions have skeletons in their closet that they had to actively outgrow.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up this deep dive, we need to talk about that ending one more time.
Yes, we do.
Because there is a way to look at the resolution of this episode that completely flips the entire narrative on its head.
I want to leave you with a completely different perspective on the character of Urena.
Okay.
The episode explicitly frames her as a jealous, reactionary wife lashing out emotionally because she's being replaced by Tasha Yar.
Right, that's how it's presented.
But look at the final outcome. She ends up with all the land, all the incredible wealth, a brand new partner she actually desires, and her total independence.
While the incredibly powerful Luton is left with nothing.
It is the ultimate trade-up.
It really is.
So what if we have been reading Urena wrong this entire time? What if she wasn't reacting emotionally at all? What if she was a brilliant tactical mastermind?
Wait, what do you mean?
Consider the possibility that she purposefully threw that fight. She allowed herself to be struck by the neurotoxin, knowing full well that the Enterprise possessed incredibly advanced medical technology that could revive her from clinical death.
Wait, are you saying she orchestrated her own death to break the marriage contract?
Is it possible she explicitly used the Federation and their strict adherence to their own advanced medical ethics to execute a flawless, completely bloodless coup against her own husband?
Oh, wow.
She saw an advanced alien ship arrive, understood the medical capabilities they likely possessed, and used the rigid rules of her own culture against Luton.
That completely changes the dynamic of every scene she is in. She wasn't a victim of the plot. She was the architect of it.
It recasts her entirely. So the next time you're watching a show or reading a book or even sitting in a chaotic meeting and you see someone who seems like a purely reactive, poorly written character making emotional decisions, ask yourself, are they poorly written or are they playing a game no one else in the room even realizes is happening?
That is an incredible lens to view it through. I love that. Well, a huge thank you to you for joining us on this deep dive into the messy, complicated, and surprisingly instructive waters of the creative
It's
process.
been a ride.
It really has. Keep asking questions, keep looking for the hidden brilliance in flawed creations, and we will catch you next time.